And good afternoon. Welcome to episode 3 of our adoption month afternoon coffee and conversation. We're highlighting adoption this month. And today we're going to be talking about what I think is probably the least known and least understood aspect of adoption, and that is safe haven. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel. And I want to give a special shout out to our veterans. And thank you for your service to our country. And Monica Kelsey, who's going to be joining me here in a pre-recorded message in a minute, is herself a Navy veteran. So thanks to her and all the other veterans that might be watching. Now, this is, as I said, is probably the least understood and least known aspect of adoption, exactly how it works. But it provides a mechanism for mothers who have had a baby. It wasn't something they planned, and they don't know what to do. And Monica's also going to tell a little bit of her story when we get into the interview. And I'd like for you to spread the word, help us get the word out that this is National Adoption Month. Adoption is a choice that a lot of people can make and want to make, and don't know where to turn or how to get resources. And that's what we're doing this month. And as we're going into today's episode, this type of tragedy does happen far too often, and it can be prevented. And that's what Safe Haven's all about. And the Safe Haven baby boxes. This happened in Austin, Texas, where a baby was found in a dumpster in an apartment complex. And they went looking to try and find them. I do not know how that one turned out, but this one in Columbus, Ohio. This is from WSIX, Fox News, no, ABC News 6 in Columbus, Ohio. And Monica's going to refer to this case in our conversation. But a teen, or two teens actually, charged after an infant found dead, buried in a shallow grave. They were charged with involuntary manslaughter. And they were called out just after 1 p.m. Monday. This has been about a month ago, I think it was, to a property, and there it tells you where it was. They're in Columbus, and after they found this baby that had been left there, and this is a sad situation. Now, about all 50 states have some sort of safe haven law, and I will link to the National Safe Haven Association as well as safe haven baby boxes in the comment section below. If you're in this kind of a situation, get help. Talk to somebody. There is help available to you. And so, what we're going to do now is go into the interview that I recorded. This is pre recorded. I recorded it last week with Monica. And she will talk a little bit about her story and how she got involved and how you can help this situation. So, without further ado, let's roll the tape. We'll record it. Hi. Well, I thank you for joining me. Take about 30 minutes here just to talk about. I'd like to talk a little bit about safe haven in general, and the baby safety boxes. And at the end, when we're done, I have a little sign off where I just tell people, be good to yourself, and if you possibly can, be good to somebody else. And after that, give it about 5 seconds, and then we're clear, and I'll turn the recording off.
Okay,
If
it sounds good.
that works. Okay. I flunked the physical because of my eyesight. So, and my father-in-law was a Navy man too. He was on the FDR. He was a parachute packer back in the day, a long time ago. So
I was
probably a day or
actually on
two
the ship
before
as
you.
well.
Huh? You were what?
I was actually stationed on a ship as well, the USS
Oh,
Emory S. Land.
okay. What kind of a ship is
And
that?
it's a subtender, and it's actually still around today. I mean, I got out in the 90s. I was in.
That we're having about National Adoption Month. And I am joined by something that I first learned about years ago, and it was quite fascinating, and that is safe haven and baby boxes. And Monica, if you would give us a quick bio of yourself, please, for the audience, and just so we know who you are and a little bit about what your organization is.
Sure. My name is Monica Kelsey. I'm the founder and current CEO of Safe Haven Baby Boxes, and we're the only organization in America today that is literally saving babies in boxes at fire stations and hospitals. A little bit about myself. I'm married with 3 kids, 2 grandkids, and a third grandchild on the way. After high school, I joined the United States military, spent 8 years in the military, and that's where I got my love for firefighting. Became a firefighter and a medic, and then retired in 2019 from the fire service. So, been around the block a few times, but now I dedicate my life to this ministry of saving babies and their moms.
Well, thank you for your service to our country. What branch were you in?
I was in the Navy.
Oh, okay. My dad was a career Air Force man. I got bounced out. I flunked the physical because of my eyesight. So, and my father-in-law was a Navy man too. He was on the FDR. He was a parachute packer back in the day, a long time ago. So,
I was
probably a day or
actually on
two
the ship
before
as
you.
well.
Huh? You were what?
I was actually stationed on a ship as well, the USS
Oh,
Emory S. Land.
okay. What kind of a ship is
And
that?
that's It's a subtender, and it's actually still around today. I mean, I got out in the 90s. I was in during Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and
Okay.
but yeah, this ship is still around today.
Okay. You must be I don't want you don't have to name numbers, but I guess you're a little bit older than I thought you were. I thought you were quite a bit younger actually. So,
I'm in my 50s. Let's just
uh,
leave it at that.
okay, I'm a little bit older than that. We were a little bit later getting into the parenting aspect of things. So, anyway, let's talk a little bit now about Safe Haven. Now, I'll tell you my early thoughts about Safe Haven. I first heard about it in about 2008. Nebraska, I was living in Colorado. Nebraska passed the Safe Haven law. And at first, I'm going to be honest, I was opposed to the whole idea because I thought this was a way of helping people be irresponsible, essentially. But since then, I've done a complete 180, having worked in a couple of group homes, been a foster parent myself. I have an adopted child, my wife's adopted, and I did a 180 over time and come to regard Safe Haven as a very necessary and a very useful way of helping people through this situation when they have an unwanted pregnancy. So, can you just address a little bit about how Safe Haven works and kind of how it came about first?
Yeah, your stance on Safe Haven in the beginning, I think, is everyone's stance when they first hear about it. I brought baby boxes to America. This had never been done before in American history. And when I was telling people the idea of Safe Haven baby boxes, about placing a baby in a box and shutting the door, people were like, "What do you mean we're putting babies in boxes? This is ridiculous. What, we're going backwards." And so, but we had to finish the sentence. We had to say, yes, putting your baby in a box is a good thing when the alternative is a dumpster or a trash can or alongside a highway, which we see every 3 to 4 days in America. People don't realize how bad it is in some of the states in America. And the Baby Box Foundation was birthed kind of out of my own story. Back in 2013, I was actually on a speaking tour in Cape Town, South Africa, and I was standing in front of this baby safe in the side of a church. It was the only church in Cape Town, South Africa that had this baby safe. And I was asking questions about, what is this? What is it used for? And they said, well, women bring their babies here at night when they don't want them or they don't care or they don't want to care for them. And I thought, well, does this really work? I mean, this is a third world country. I mean, and they had saved 7 babies that year. And I thought, could we bring this back to America and make this something that is useful for people who don't know what else to do? And so on the flight back from Cape Town, South Africa, on a Delta napkin, I hand drew my version of the baby box. Now, to give you a little insight, as a firefighter and a medic, I had retired. I retired after that, obviously, but as a firefighter and a medic, I always knew about the safe haven law. So I was always aware that there was a place where you could walk into a fire station or a hospital and hand your child to a person. But I knew that there wasn't any boxes like this. And so to take you back, though, to get you to understand where the passion started to come from and where the light bulb started going off, that that Christ was truly using me for something, for such a time as this. I got to take you back to 1972 when a young 17-year-old girl was brutally attacked and raped and left along the side of the road. And this was in a time in our country when abortion was illegal. And I'm not here to debate abortion. I'm just stating it wasn't available back then, even in the cases of rape and incest. And
Right.
so the 17-year-old girl pressed charges against this man, and he was arrested and charged. And if that wasn't the worst of it, when her life was finally getting back to normal, she found out she was pregnant. And she was hidden for the remainder of the pregnancy, and then gave birth in April of 1973 and abandoned her child 2 hours after that child was born, and that child was me. So I literally stand on the front lines of this ministry as one of these kids that wasn't lovingly and safe, legally and anonymously placed in a safe haven baby box by, a parent that wanted me. But this is my legacy. And I am now their voice, and I'll forever walk alongside these moms as they choose something safe. And how blessed am I to be able to do this work for Christ?
In the first instance, I guess I ever heard of anything like this, I don't know if you remember it or not, but there was an episode of MASH
Yeah.
that they found the baby that was left in front of Hawkeye's tent. And then at
Yep.
the end, I actually tried to find a clip of that. The only one I could find was Hawkeye and Winchester arguing at the embassy with the Charge Fairs or whoever it was. But that kind of, I guess, when I started thinking back about it and my own stance on safe haven, I got to thinking about it in a place like that. If they can safely deliver a baby somewhere where it's going to be cared for, why not here? And I know some people who have adopted babies that were safe haven. And I've looked at some of the pictures of these babies and I thought, yeah, this is what we've got to get awareness of. And I have found we adopted our daughter in 2013. And I've gone to various fairs and places where they have right to life. They've got children's home, and we've worked in 2 children's homes. And I will ask, do you know anything about safe haven? And I don't know how many times I've asked that question, but I can tell you how many times I've been told, yes, I know about it. And that's zero. Like
Yep.
nobody knows about safe haven, even in the pro-life movement. So I'm wondering, how are you getting awareness of not only the baby boxes, but safe haven in general out to the public? Because this is something I think that needs to get out.
So the safe haven law was passed back in 1999. And the problem when they passed it was a good law. It was, for a start, for a woman to be able to walk in and hand their child to a person at a fire station or a hospital, that was a good start. But what they failed to do was put any funding behind the education of it or the awareness of it. And so for the last 25 years, we've been basically using the hands and feet of Christ and the donations and fundraising that safe haven organizations or nonprofits are doing, and utilizing that money for education and awareness. And if you run a nonprofit, you don't always have those funds available to do everything you need to do. And so social media right now for us is huge. We have about 2 million followers between TikTok and Facebook. And we hear from moms all the time who have used Safe Haven, who have used one of our boxes, even though that it's anonymous at the box. These mothers are trusting us and they're contacting us, and we're getting them the resources. But social media is a big one. We're in the schools. We gather the troops. We have a thing called Boots on the Ground, where you're in your community. If you want to educate, because we can't do it, we can't do every place in America. Those people are given the flyers, the little magnets, the pens, and anything that they need to be able to go into the schools and educate on safe haven. But it truly needs to start in middle school, and it needs to continue in high school, and it needs to continue in college, because the kids in middle school may not need it today, but they may need it when they're in high school. And then the high schoolers may not need it today, and they might need it in college. And the college kids are the ones that we have to get to last, because they've already been through, middle school and high school. And if they didn't get that education there, we have to at least get them the education in college. But this is the toughest part of my job. is the education and awareness, is getting this out there and talking to anyone that will listen. We're starting to see some of the states give funding for education and awareness. 2 days ago, there was a baby found in Columbus, Ohio, deceased. Mother's been
I heard
found,
about
father's
that.
been found. Mother's 14, dad's 15 or 16 or something like that. And they've been charged with involuntary manslaughter. And it's like, these are kids. Where did we fail? Did they know about the safe haven law? I mean, they certainly knew that killing a child was not right, but did they know that there was a law that was available in that community? And so this is our biggest challenge, and we open our doors to anyone that wants to help educate in the community in which they live.
Now, are safe haven laws in all 50 states? Now, the last time I looked, they were in about 35 or 36 states. But do we have it across the board now in all 50 states?
So the safe haven law, a version of the safe haven law,
Or a
is in all 50
version?
states. Yep, in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, but they're not all the same, which is a problem, of course. Some states you can surrender a child only up to 3 days old, or some states 90 days, some states 60 days, one state's a year. And if it's confusing to us who is trying to educate the youth on it, think about how confusing it is to the youth that are trying to utilize it. So we're trying to get that as a federal law, but currently it is state specific, and it was passed at the state level. And so they're all different. So we always recommend that someone call us to get your state, your requirements. If you're a mom in crisis, call us so that we. Most of our babies that we get in our boxes are within 12 hours old. Okay. They're not 40 days. They're not 60 days. They're not 90. They are within, these babies are basically being born outside of hospitals, packed up and taken to our fire stations.
We were living in Florida when I live in Illinois now. I'm just over the line from Indiana, but we were in Florida when we adopted. And that is where I started to get an in-depth knowledge of the whole safe haven concept. I didn't hear about the baby boxes till we moved here. My wife happened to see your post on Facebook and then passed it on to me. And she suggested I contact you when I came up with this idea to do these shows for National Adoption Month. But in Florida, I found out that the law there allows 7 days to turn a baby into I think the wording is an approved facility, which is defined as anywhere that employs full-time medical personnel. So that opens it up to quite a few places. And the law has been on the books there since about 2000. And last I heard, they've had about 200 babies, I think, in Florida that have been turned in. Now, I don't know if you have the boxes there, but the safe haven law there has saved about 200 babies. And I grew up in Alaska. And that is someplace there when I really and got in touch with some people up there when I learned of Safe Haven and said, you got to get this up there because there have been babies that have been left in the cold. And up there, well, I read about one, it was right after we adopted our baby. It was minus 35 in Fairbanks. And a baby was found that had passed away because of exposure. I mean, you're not going to last long at 35 below. And it's in extreme climates like that where I'm thinking we really need to get these laws for this reason and get the word out. Now, in Illinois, they tried to bring in the boxes here about 4 years ago. I don't think it's been tried since. And I looked up and I found the Illinois Bar Association came out against the law, and they listed a bunch of reasons. But one of these reasons they listed was the costly purchase and maintenance of baby boxes, even though the current safe haven law is working successfully. Can you talk to that? Is it a big cost to get these and to install them or set them up?
No, interesting enough, no taxpayers' money goes into our boxes. And so them even referencing that, when we go into a state, we never ask the state for money. Now some of the states are doing education, but not for boxes. We don't ask for money. And so when people bring it to a state like Illinois, there's actually an organization in Illinois that is 100% against baby boxes. And this organization is just leveraging everybody that will listen to them. And of course, this is one organization that listened and wrote about it. But the cost does not come from the state. The cost comes from donors in donations. And so having that even be said, they clearly didn't look at our program. But the to do a box. So let's take Carmel, Indiana. Carmel, Indiana is one of the wealthiest cities in Indiana. Carmel, Indiana said, "Hey, we want to put a box in." And I actually got criticized for putting a box in Carmel, Indiana, because of how wealthy it is. That was where Peyton Manning lived. That's where Mike Pence
Right.
lives. That's the community in which this is. And so we put a box in there. The fire department took some heat. They hold the record for the amount of babies placed in their box, and they paid
Really?
11,000. Yeah, they paid $11,000. So how much is a child's life worth? And it wasn't the city or the state that paid that. It was a donor. And so how that $11,000, was it worth it? Yes. 100% yes. They've had 4 infants in 18 months. And so when
Wow.
you look at that, we can't be putting price tags on these babies' lives. I mean, Christ didn't put a price tag on us saying which one was more worthy than the other. And so we
Right.
can't do that, especially when we're not asking them for money. If I was coming into the state saying, "Hey, I need $1 million from your state, and I'm going to put baby boxes." I'm not even doing that. I'm saying I just want to come in and help. And if they are saying they have this under control in Illinois, they're kidding themselves. Chicago alone is one of the number 1 cities in America for infant abandonment. Illinois is in the
Okay.
top 5. And so
Uh,
they don't have it under control. They actually, I believe it was the end of last year, had a baby that was dropped at a fire station on the ground at this fire station, left on the ground in a duffel bag, and this baby froze to death. And so
and
I
we
don't
do
know if
get some winters around here, so
yeah,
that's yeah. Um, Yeah, so well, see, I was looked at that and I thought, just how much could it be? And like you said, how much is a life worth? And I thought that's kind of bogus to bring that up when most in the pro-life area and adoption, a lot of that's private funded anyway. So
yes.
I would think that any cost to the taxpayer for something like this would be minimal
Mhm.
because, like you say, we've got some pretty generous people that help out with these things. Um, One of the other things they raised, and I think they contradicted themselves on this, but they said that relinquishment at a relinquishment facility without human interaction with trained healthcare professionals was another objection they raised. But then they turned around and said that this whole thing poses privacy risks. And I'm thinking, if this is anonymous, then how do you pose a privacy risk? And yet you're saying they need to have contact with people. To me, I'm seeing a contradiction here. I don't know if I'm being very clear with that, but I'm seeing that they're contradicting themselves here.
Well, so in the state of Illinois, anybody can walk into a fire station or a hospital and surrender their infant. Okay,
Hmm.
so if a woman walks into a hospital and she just wants to get out of there, there's no interaction, none. And if a
Right,
woman
no
walks into
questions
a fire
asked.
station, yeah, if a woman walks into a fire station and a fire station starts trying to counsel her, can you imagine how bad that would be? Our firefighters are not trained in counseling. And so if you want this woman to be counseled, change your law. Make her answer questions, but your law specifically states no questions asked. She can walk out of there without giving you anything.
Mhm.
And
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 that's the
so
Florida law
yes,
too.
yes, you're absolutely right. They contradict themselves a lot. They make up this, well, in most states there's actually, it says anyone can surrender an infant. And most of these people who hate boxes are like, well, we want the mother to walk in and hand this child to a person. Well, then you better change your law, because your law says any person of good faith that voluntarily
Hmm.
leaves a child is not obligated to disclose the person's name or the parent's name. And so that alone says you don't need to be the parent. You just bring us the kid.
Hmm.
You just bring us the
Hmm.
baby. And so they do contradict themselves a lot. If they want the mother to stick around and answer questions, then you need to put that in your law. But you don't have it in your law, and they're criticizing Safe Haven baby boxes because we want to take the face-to-face away, nothing else. Everything else that follows after that, we want it to happen exactly how it happens if they hand you the infant. All we're doing is taking the face-to-face interaction away and letting her do this anonymously, privately. And I love the word confidential. They are always saying, oh, confidential. This walking in and handing your child to a person is not only confidential but anonymous. No, it is not. It is confidential. It is not anonymous. Anonymous means you don't know their skin color, you don't know whether it was male or female, you don't know anything about them. Confidentiality means I might know who you are, but I'm not going to tell anyone. And so we have to be clear. And the thing is too, these women are smart. If you think you're talking to a 17-year-old stupid kid, you're crazy. They are smart. They know exactly where to go to get the information if they don't know it. And so, not giving them accurate and honest information is absolutely contradicting themselves.
Well, and the other part they said here, one of their other points they said is that this is dehumanizing both to the newborn and the parent. And I thought, well, what? Putting the baby in a dumpster or by the side of the road is more humanizing? To me, this is preserving the humanity or preserving a life by going in. And um, I knew a family that had a safe haven baby, and they went back to the hospital. Their baby, long story short, was the first safe haven baby left at this hospital. So they went strictly by the book because sometimes I am told they will try off the record to get some information that they can pass down, like hereditary, genetic, that sort of thing. And the baby was very healthy. But the nurse said, I don't think the mother had any prenatal care. But then a number of other factors made the parents think that might not have been the mother who dropped the baby off. It could have been somebody who could pass herself off as the mother. So I'm seeing here, well, you're right. As far as the anonymity goes, yeah, they saw this person. They have her on the surveillance cameras, but they have no idea who she is.
Right.
But with a baby box, she could have put it in, rang the bell or however they let them and walked away. Because I'm assuming you don't put any kind of surveillance on them, no cameras, no nothing. So it's as
Correct.
anonymous as it gets.
Correct.
So
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
and I'm looking at this thinking, to me, this is the best of, both worlds in the sense that this woman can now give this baby to an because it'll eventually go to an adoption agency or adoption pool, and I can go away and I don't have to worry about my health or the baby's health. It will get a home somewhere of someone who wants this child. And that's why I've become, married to an adoptee, having an adopted child, why I've become very adamant and I would say passionate about adoption. And I've become kind of a walking billboard for safe haven now, ever since I learned really what it is. Because I do ask people at fairs, if they're if they're representing a children's home or pro-life. And like I said, nobody knows anything about this. And so I
Yep.
really want to try and get the word out. And I'm really glad that you agreed to talk about this and the need for it.
And
Um,
there is a need. There is a need for education. There is a need for education in the firehouses with our first responders to make sure that they handle the surrender properly. If a mother walks in and hands the child to a person, tons of stuff needs to happen to make sure that these moms know about this law and that the people receiving these babies are equipped.
Now, when they bring the baby in, the law, like in Florida, I'm more familiar with that one because I live there and that's where we adopted and that sort of thing. The law typically has some wording that there must be no obvious signs of abuse or neglect.
Right.
Now, when if a mother comes in, hey, I don't want this baby, I can't keep it, does she at least get detained long enough to take a look at the baby to make sure that that is being met, or does she just say, "Here, bye, see ya," and head for the door?
Well,
Because
I
I've
think every
wondered what you would do in that case if you look at this and say, "Hey, this looks like there's some bruises here or something that looks out of the ordinary."
Well, what we train in the firehouses is to just take the infant, look down. Obviously, if you see any bruises, try to get her identity, make some mental notes, get the card. Do not hold her there. Let her go.
Okay.
We can find her. And
Okay.
so, especially if she drove there, look out the door. I mean, the boxes obviously are not on camera, but
Right.
the parking lot might be. The street may have street camera. I can't get rid of all of those cameras, but I can
No.
ensure that there's no camera on the baby box itself. But one thing too to point out, we've never had an abused infant. And I think that
Okay.
speaks volumes about these moms who utilize the safe haven movement or safe haven law. Is they love these kids, they just are, for whatever reason, not able to parent. And so that should bring a little bit of peace, knowing that we aren't getting these abused babies. But again, like I said before, we're getting babies that are 12 hours old or younger. And so these babies are just freshly born. Now, obviously, I can't speak for every state in this
Mhm.
country that doesn't, that's taking in babies. I don't know if there's anywhere else, but we've never had that happen.
And that kind of surprises me that 12 hours old, that tells me they're probably not even being born in a hospital.
They're not.
They're
No. 90,
probably being born at home or in a hotel room somewhere.
95% of our babies are not born in hospitals.
And so does that give you cause to look for medical conditions? Because let's face it, if I had to deliver a baby, I don't know the first thing about it. And that would be my concern, is that you have people who are not medically knowledgeable on that. Do you ever get any that have got some kind of medical emergency that they need extra attention, or are they all pretty well? I'm not even sure if I'm asking the question right,
No,
but
I understand what you're saying. And we've had one baby that needed some help right away. But again, these babies, that being 12 hours old, they're not born in hospitals. These mothers are basically giving birth, scooping them up, and going to the local firehouse or to the local hospital. But again, let's go back to the smartphone and how smart these women are. We had a mom that called our hotline, which our hotline has a counselor, a psychologist, and a registered nurse on it. So we have both medical and psychological that help out on the hotline. But we had a mom that utilized one of our baby boxes that called in and got counseling, was working with our counselor for many months. And she said that she got information on delivering an infant and how to cut the umbilical cord by watching a YouTube. And so they're smart. We have to give credit where credit is due. They will do the research to keep themselves safe. And is it ideal? No, it's not ideal. But we have to give the information to these moms. Hope they do the right thing,
Mhm.
but it's their decision. And so we just give as much information as we can. We ensure that when a baby is born and they call us, the baby is breathing, baby is being kept warm. Any sign, baby blue, baby whatever, our nurse goes through. But most of these babies are already born when they call us.
I'm
And so,
laughing because I didn't think there was, it wouldn't, I don't know why, but it wouldn't have occurred to me to go to YouTube for a video about birthing babies, but you can, I
yep,
think, find anything on YouTube.
yeah.
Uh, so that shouldn't surprise me that you've got that on YouTube. Um, but and so when the babies come in now, when in the situations that I have been aware of, they typically check the baby out. If once they determine the baby's healthy, they usually call an adoption agency. And I don't know how the protocol there, how they get the names of the adoption agencies, but that's usually what happens. Is that pretty much again across the board, or do sometimes they go into state foster care, or does it really matter from that point uh, where they go?
The state of Florida, they do call an adoption agency. We're not in favor of this. We are in
Okay.
favor, and I know this sounds bad when I say this, but we are in favor of babies going into the foster to adopt program through the Department of Child Services. Why I say that is there is pay to play. There is pay to play in the safe haven movement, and
Okay.
there are
Now that I didn't know.
safe haven organizations that are taking money from adoption agencies. And we refuse to do that. We do not want to look like
Okay.
we're trafficking infants. We do not want to look like we're coercing moms to place their baby for adoption or put their baby in our box so we can take that baby to an adoption agency while that adoption gives us money. We don't do any of that. And
Mhm.
so we're completely against the adoption agencies. Plus, a baby that comes through the baby box program, these parents love these kids. They want these kids to be with a forever family. But I'm sure if you ask any of them if they want these parents to pay $60,000 for this infant, the answer to that question would be no. And so we have some really good foster parents out there that are licensed and ready to adopt today.
Okay.
Today. They will take this child today. Even medically fragile babies. We have a podcast coming out next week from a family that actually adopted one of our Safe Haven baby box babies that was medically fragile at the beginning of her life. Now she's healthy, but they
Okay.
placed this baby with a forever family, and she's a nurse practitioner. So it was the perfect fit for this medically fragile baby, this family that wanted to adopt and also had medical knowledge. And so,
Okay.
the foster care system gets a lot of bad raps, but I'll tell you, they've found some pretty amazing families, through the foster care system. And it's called foster to adopt because it's a little bit faster
Right.
than a baby being placed in foster care and lingering there for years.
Hmm.
Those kids that linger there for years are because parents won't sign the rights over. Our babies, we don't need to sign the rights over. They've already got implied consent, and a judge just has to do a few, procedural things and then
Hmm.
terminate parental rights. It's a lot quicker when it's through Safe
Now,
Haven.
we worked in the group homes and well, long story short, we had a couple of failed adoptions that wound up there, and that's another discussion for another time. But the group homes, they're dealing with a lot of these kids because sometimes parents have kids and they treat it almost like a dog. If it doesn't work out, I'll take it back to the pound. And so that's another thing I want to educate people on is on adoption or even your biological children, that it doesn't work that way. You've
Right.
got to be with them through thick and thin. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, because this is a state to state issue, and you mentioned trying to get a federal law. Is there any movement on the federal level at all with
No,
anybody? I
we have
do
been
remember, no, nobody's even talked to you or had hearings or anything at all, or?
we've actually had some meetings with some people, but it seems to not go anywhere, and I don't understand why. I just don't get it. So we have people that are continually pushing on this, and again, we have had some people contact us, get some information from us, do some stories for us, but I don't see this happening anytime soon. I mean, I'm thankful that every state has a safe haven law, but we do need to regulate it across the country to be the same so that we're not confusing to anyone.
Now, I do remember when Roe versus Wade got overturned, there was a certain senator, without getting political or naming names necessarily, who seemed to go on the warpath against pro-life pregnancy centers and things. Are you getting any kind of blowback ever since Roe versus Wade got overturned, or any negativity against safe haven or against, just the pro-life adoption aspect of this?
Since Roe v. Wade was overturned, I think we've got more support from the pro life movement than what we did before. We don't take a stand on pro life or pro choice because we want everyone to
Hmm.
trust us, that they feel
Right.
comfortable and safe with us. But when you look at the other side of the aisle, they should be looking at this as a child welfare issue. Because these
Hmm.
babies that are being dumped, if they're found alive, they are going to be a burden to your state. And burden, I mean cash money burden. They're going to cost money.
Right.
They're going to cost dollars at the hospital in case they're injured from this dumpster that they were sleeping in
Hmm.
for 16 hours, like the baby out of Austin, Texas. And so, the other side of the aisle should be looking at this as a child welfare issue. Now, Republicans kind of look at this as a pro-life thing, and we look at this as these babies are born. They're not in the wound. I mean, we can talk about that if you want to, but these babies are already here when they call us or when they show up in our box, and they deserve their right to life. They deserve to be protected. And I was on an interview earlier this morning where they were questioning ethnicity and medical information that this child will not have that's placed in our box. And I went right back to if you don't have your life, what does it matter what your medical background is or your ethnicity? I mean, I was abandoned as an infant, placed in foster care, and then adopted by two amazing parents. I didn't know anything. I took a DNA test, and I know more through this DNA test than I probably would have gotten from any of my biological parents. And so, there's so many things out there today that can help on those aspects, but life has to be first. If you don't have your right to life, what do you have?
Right, and I'm just thinking that you mentioned it. You find the baby in the dumpster. If there's an infection or anything from being there, you're looking at how many thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in Medicaid, or however that's going to be paid, taxpayers' dollars. Whereas
Taxpayer,
if
yeah.
she can't, yes, and whatever other care, and that whereas if the baby can be surrendered and then adopted eventually, I can see where the cost is going to take a nosedive.
Well, and these
It's,
babies
the
that are
more I'm seeing this, the more I'm seeing the common sense in this, the more I talk about it.
Yeah, and these babies that are being thrown in these dumpsters, it's not implied consent to be surrendered to find a family. So these babies are abandoned, and so the Department of Child Services gets involved and treats this as an abandonment. They can't just do a fast track to adoption with these kids. These babies are in foster care for years. And so they're draining the system on that aspect. They're also draining the system medically if they're injured or have any issues. And so if a baby was surrendered legally, either by a handoff or in a baby box, that's implied consent. This baby would be fast tracked immediately with either a foster to adopt family or an adoption agency such as Florida. But these babies will go into their forever homes and then bond with their parents as well. That is very, very important for us,
It
that these
is.
babies get to their forever families as quickly as possible so they can bond. And so yeah, I'm glad you're seeing the full scope of this, because we try to tell people this and they just don't get how it's not just the box. It's not. There's so much more problems out there. And I had a reporter the other day, and I try not to be too political or pro-life, pro-choice, going down that road, but sometimes you just kind of look at these people and you think, really? Really? Some of the questions that they ask about these kids, and but now I forgot where I was going with that. That's what happens when you're, in your 50s. You forget
Wait,
what you're
wait till you
talking
hit 60. Wait till you hit 60. It doesn't get any better.
about.
But I appreciate your time. And if somebody wanted to get more information, maybe make a donation or just, and find out more what this is all about, how would they do that?
They can go to shbb.org. They can make a donation today. All donations are tax deductible to our organization. They can also follow us on social media. That's really important, because if you're sharing the posts that we're putting out, especially the educational posts, then everybody in your timeline is going to see them. And maybe, just maybe, somebody that will need that information one day will see it because you took the time to repost what we posted.
I know you're on Facebook. Are you on Instagram and LinkedIn and all the rest of it as well?
We,
Twitter, or X, I guess it is now. I keep calling it Twitter. X just
we
doesn't sound right, but
We are. Our biggest two accounts, though, are TikTok with 1.3 million, and then Facebook with 600,000. But we're on
okay.
Instagram, and I have a personal one on Instagram too. It's called the Baby Box Lady, or you can do Safe Haven Baby Boxes. So
Okay. Alrighty. Well, I appreciate your time, and this will go out next week. I'll put it on the channel, and I'll send you a note when I do get it posted. But I appreciate you being here, and thank you everybody for watching. And next episode, I believe, is going to be next Friday, and that will be dealing with transracial adoption. So come on back for that one. Thanks for being here. Have a great day, everyone. Be good to yourself, and if you possibly can, be good to somebody else. Thanks for watching. I'm going to
And that was my interview with Monica Kelsey of the Safe Haven Baby Boxes. And I'm going to link to her website in the comment section below. That is a lifeline that infants really need to have. And I'm also going to link to the Safe Haven, National Safe Haven Alliance, for those who would be interested in contacting them. That's going to wrap it up for today. I won't have an episode this coming Friday. I'm in a stage production of A Christmas Carol that's performing this weekend. But next Tuesday, I will be joined by my guest, Eric Floyd, as we will be be talking then about safe haven, about transracial adoption, as well as adopting some older kids. That's it for today. Thanks for being here. We leave your comments in the comment section below. There is also a poll published asking if you ever heard about Safe Haven before this episode aired. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next episode. Be good to yourself, and if it's at all possible, be good to someone else today. Thanks for watching.